Oh, how 2 weeks can really change the context of a season. Thanks for tuning in, Mountaineer Nation, for another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports, previewing the Week 11 opponent, West Virginia. Our beloved Mountaineers come into Saturday's contest 3-6 overall, 1-5 in Big 12 play. Against a team with a same record, 3-6, 1-5, the Colorado Buffaloes, 2 Milan Pushkar Stadium in wonderful Morgantown, West Virginia. A 12 noon Eastern Standard Time kick. If you're not attending this game in person, you can also watch it on TNT, True TV, or HBO Max. The ESPN betting odds have this one, and this is why I said, wow, how the context of a season can change so much. West Virginia, now a 6.5 point favorite. The largest spread in West Virginia's favor since week 1 against RMU. You can go back and remember, I think it was only a 3.5 point spread in that Ohio game. For the rest of the way out, West Virginia has been underdogs. The ESPN matchup predictor has this game in West Virginia's favor at 55%. The over-under set at 52.5. So as I do with all of these preview shows, we're going to talk about the matchup history. We're going to talk about what's on the line for both teams. We're going to get into the weather and injuries. What to watch for when West Virginia has the ball, what to watch for when Colorado has the ball, a special teams breakdown, 3 keys to victory, and I'll get you out with a prediction with my good friend, the West Virginia Swami. So before we get into the meat of today's show, please encourage you, hit that like button, the thumbs up, so that more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube, helps out the algorithm. Love to have you a subscriber to my channel. Gotten a few in the last couple of weeks, so thanks for being on board with me here in the final stretch of the regular season for 2025. It's going to be a fun one. And I think like just the West Virginia is feeling some headwinds finally, or feeling some tailwinds from all of the headwinds that they faced at the beginning of Big 12 play. Now this is a chance for West Virginia really to flex its muscles at home in its penultimate home game of the season. So matchup history, 1-1, and I was thinking to myself, I don't know if West Virginia's ever played Colorado before, and then kind of looked this up and was like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, I remember that series. So West Virginia lost on Thursday, September 18th, 2008, 17-14 at Colorado. You can remember that was Bill Stewart's first full season in Morgantown as head coach. The week prior, West Virginia lost as a ranked opponent on the road at East Carolina. That was, I think, before the Ohio game, the last time West Virginia had lost to a G6 opponent in the regular season. So that was a rough run. Then in 2009, with Jarrett Brown as West Virginia's starting quarterback, the Mountaineers won 35-24 win in Morgantown. Excuse me, I almost said overtime. Noel Devine had a career-high 220 yards rushing, and the West Virginia defense forced 3 Colorado turnovers, outlasting the Buffaloes at home on a Thursday night contest, October 1st, 2009. And speaking of Noel Devine, this one has an interesting wrinkle to this game. So, head coach of Colorado, Deion Sanders, Noel Devine's childhood mentor. We know that the history is, I don't know if there was some sort of a falling out or something that happened, but Noel Devine wanted to get as far away from the state of Florida as possible, so that's why he came to Morgantown. So I think the second 5-star recruit in program history behind Jason Gwaltney of that 2005 team, Noel Devine coming to Morgantown as a 5-star, incredible recruit, ended up being one of the best running backs in school history. He'll be the assistant running backs coach for West Virginia in this contest, while Deion Sanders will be the head coach. So I wonder if they have mended their fences over the course of the last, almost 20 years, or if they're, if that'll come up during the broadcast, we'll have to hear. And speaking of that 2005 team, this game will also be honoring Steve Slayton and the 2000. I don't know if Steve Slayton's getting his number retired or if he's in the WVU Hall of Fame, or what's the deal there with Slayton. But the 2005 team being honored, and let me tell you, fans, that is the team that got young Carson hooked to the West Virginia Mountaineers in college football. I love that team with all of my heart, with all of my being. I still have my jersey from when I was in 5th, 6th grade. I'm not going to stand up to kind of show the way that it fits around the chest and the waist. And as you can see, some of the letters and the numbers have peeled. That was like back in the day when the jerseys kind of peeled like this. But nobody, this is one of, I think, 2 or 3 Steve Slayton jerseys that I have. Nobody loved Mr. Steve Slayton, the double S, MySpace friends. Yeah, we were MySpace friends back in the day. That's so funny. Then Carson Fox. Loved Steve Slayton. I wish I could get out of work early to go down and go to that signing. I didn't wear it for this show, but I actually have a lot of the 2005 through 2010 players all signed my number 10 Steve Slayton jersey. So it's cool to go back and look at those. So I'd love to have him sign it if possible. I got Noel Devines on the sleeve right in through here, but don't have Slayton. So what's on the line for both teams in the 2025 matchup with Colorado? So for Colorado, last week the Buffaloes trailed 38-7 at the half on homecoming to Noah Fifita in Arizona before ultimately falling 52-17. Colorado turned the ball over 5 times. Fifita torched Colorado for 213 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air in the first half, coasting in the second half. Transfer freshman quarterback Julian Juju Lewis came in midway through the third quarter, ended up going 9 for 17 for 121 yards with a passing touchdown and a 15-yard rush with a 73 QBR for the day. We're going to kind of put a pin in that and come back to Juju Lewis when we talk about Colorado's offense. But still, the Buffaloes have been outscored 105-24 over the last 2 games to Arizona and Utah after beating a ranked Iowa State on the road October 11th. They have a bye next week. They're still fighting for bowl eligibility like West Virginia, but this is a bottom-tier Big 12 team on the downswing, reeling on the defensive side especially. So what's on the line for them if they're trying to turn it around, and we'll talk about how they're trying to do it. For West Virginia, I feel like West Virginia is coming, on an upswing off its first-ranked victory on the road since at Texas in 2018, and not only beating Houston as a 2-score underdog, but won by 10 points. True freshman quarterback Scotty Fox and inspired defensive play have given this team a shot in the arm with bowl eligibility still to play for, and they are truly getting better, which is something that was a goal from the onset of this season. So Colorado looking for an upswing. West Virginia already ahead of them in that regard. Colorado's on the road, 1,500 miles from home. Haven't been to Morgantown yet as Big 12 opponents. What I will say for this one is who truly wants this war? Which coaching staff and team leaders are going to step up and motivate their guys, and ultimately who plays better at the end of the day? Will that message resonate? Or will it not? We're going to talk about how this Colorado team is just absolutely not only reeling on the field, but also I feel like in the recovery room in just a second. So weather alert for this one, beautiful. Going to be a nice one down in Morgantown. High of 62, partly cloudy, 20% chance of rain. Absolutely no way that weather impacts this game. And thankfully it hasn't impacted, I feel like, any of the Mountaineers games so far this season. So they've been blessed in that regard. So injuries, we know a lot of the same ones who have been out for the season. Anybody new within the last week? No, for West Virginia. And I'm going by Wednesday night's availability report, recording here on Thursday night. I can't do it with the way how late those availability reports release. So going by Wednesday night's availability report, Tyler Jacklich, Clay Ash, both listed as questionable. So that's 2 more running backs in addition to Jaheim White and Ty Edwards, who dealing with some sort of a nagging injury at this point in time. Probable wide receiver Jeff Weimer and offensive guard Donovan Haslam. So Ash, Jacklich 50-50 to play. 25-75 for Weimer and Haslam. Now, off the injury report, who didn't play in last week's game, Kimo Makaneole at guard. We'll have to see if he gets his starting position back, bumping Walter Young-Bear back out of the starting lineup, or will you stick with Young-Bear alongside Haslam? We'll have to see how that goes. At quarterback, Khalil Wilkin, seems like he's good to go after getting beat to death in that UCF game, and previously that BYU and Utah, and then also wide receiver Justin Smith-Brown. Now, I did all this research for Colorado, this game earlier in the week, trying to understand, kind of what to watch for on both sides of the ball and all of this jazz. Then the availability report came out for Colorado, and I went, hello, I think all of this can kind of be thrown out the window because Colorado is beat up, y'all. Absolutely beat up. So one starter already declared out for this contest, and that's nose tackle Amari McNeil. So really valuable defensive line piece down for the Buffaloes on this day. Backup cornerback Makari Vickers is also out. Otherwise, it seems like you kind of got to go down the depth chart for anybody who matters. But maybe the most significant unavailability, I'll put it this way, for Colorado in this game is their leading tackler. A guy I was really looking forward to breaking down and talking about is safety Tawfiq Bayard. He's out for the first half because of a targeting call in Colorado's game last week. He's the best defensive player Colorado has, so we won't see him for the first half, and that's when West Virginia might be able to get a sizable advantage on the Buffaloes. Doubtful one guy, running back Simeon Price. Questionable 3 starters, 2 on the offensive line for Colorado. Right tackle Larry Johnson III, and left tackle their best offensive lineman, former 5-star of 2 classes ago, Jordan Seaton, so he's a sophomore. Also, starting cornerback DJ McKinney. So going to miss at least Bayard for the first half. We'll have to see if McKinney comes and even plays in this contest. The secondary is hurt. So probable, again, 75% chance of playing, but there are 5 different starters listed who are probable already on the availability report. So at least you know that they're nicked up. On both of them, impacting the offensive side of the ball that I think is most important is Omarion Miller, the leading receiver for Colorado, and also the second leading receiver, Joseph Williams, another cornerback. So in addition to McKinney, also Bayard at safety, Tion Parks is also probable. Nicked up. Starting left guard, Xavier Hill, and then 2 tight ends for Colorado, Zach Atkins, the starter, also Brady Koppitz, the second stringer. Ben Finiseth at safety, if Bayard being out for the first half is nicked up as well. He's the second stringer at safety, but he's a senior. So a lot of injuries that Colorado's dealing with. We think as a West Virginia fans, we've had the injury bug. Colorado, I feel like, has had it just as bad. Similar to what I'm reading, Iowa State, looking around the Big 12, is down, I think, somewhere around the ballpark of like 11 different starters from opening day. Like, oof, that is just a killer. So what to watch for when the Buffaloes have the ball? We'll break down the Colorado offense versus the West Virginia defense. Looking at it statistically, the Colorado offense, who's coordinated by third-year OC Pat Shurmur, formerly of the NFL. He was part of the initial staff in Colorado under Coach Sanders and had stayed there ever since. Offense not so good statistically this season, just averaging 22 points per game, 108th in FBS in terms of points. 330 yards per game. That's 107th in FBS. West Virginia's defense, not still out of the woods just yet, even though 2 pretty inspiring performances last 2 weeks ago against TCU and last week on the road against Houston, but still giving up 35 points. So they're up still to 30 points per game allowed. That's 110th in FBS, and 406 yards per game allowed. That's 106th in FBS. So what I can't understand about the Colorado offense is their refusal and or inability to, so refusal because of inability to run the ball. In 2023, I know the offensive line sucked. They were getting beat up, pressured. They couldn't run just a similar way. West Virginia was really struggling to run the ball earlier this season. Last year, Colorado was really stat chasing for Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and trying to get, Sanders to the NFL and Travis Hunter to win a Heisman. This year now, so year 3 of the Coach Prime experience, to 101st in FBS, averaging just 130 yards per game. And they just ineffectively run the ball with their running backs. As a team, they're 3.7 yards per carry. They haven't been able to get a stud running back ever since former four-star Dylan Edwards, who's now at Kansas State, transferred out. I just don't know if they don't put an emphasis on the running backs position in that kind of the ground game, but their quarterbacks, especially the ones that we'll talk about, do run. So this year, at the beginning of the year, Colorado thought they could turn to former Liberty quarterback Caden Salter, and he's been good but not great, and decided to play a lot of hero ball from the games that I've watched Colorado's offense this season. This really came to a head 2 weeks ago at Utah, where he took 5 sacks, threw a pick, only had 37 yards passing on 9 completions. Yeah, 37 yards on 9 completions, and had net negative yards rushing on 14 attempts. So the problem with Salter, or at least for Colorado, is the backup, Ryan Staub, isn't any better. More picks than touchdowns on the season, just a 55% completion percentage. He's not at all the kind of running threat that Salter is. So they're giving a break to both of them. And after the great performance, and I don't know if you say great, but above average performance in mop-up duty when Arizona really already had the game in hand, Colorado's turning to freshly turned 18-year-old true freshman quarterback Juju Lewis, a former 5-star recruit and number 2 player in the high school class of 2025, who passed on home state Georgia to be Coach Prime's quarterback of the future at Colorado. He's got mobility, he's got arm talent. I just think he's a little bit thin and, of course, needs experience. West Virginia has a lot of times, though, and this is what gives me trepidation going into this matchup, has been a first-time starter's breakout game. I think maybe most notoriously, that if I say this, I'm going to bring some PTSD and heartburn to some Mountaineer fans, is remember B.J. Daniels of South Florida. Ugh. Or how about Jet Duffy of Texas Tech? Blech. So 2 wide receivers I do like, but they're currently nicked up right now. Omarion Miller, number 4, junior wide receiver. He's the leader in all 3 categories: receptions, yards, and touchdowns, 28 for 521 and 6 touchdowns. And then right behind him, transfer from Tulsa, sophomore wide receiver, number 8, Joseph Williams, 27 catches, 386 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, the big thing going against Colorado, they've given up 24 sacks on the year. That's tied for 113th in the nation. That's 2 more than West Virginia has given up for the entire year. And we know the troubles that West Virginia's O-line has given the offense this season. And they, as I've said, they don't want to run the ball for whatever reason with their running back. So if I'm thinking about West Virginia and how I play Colorado, I think one-on-one tackling by the West Virginia secondary and linebackers will be absolutely essential. In back-to-back weeks now in which we've seen West Virginia get eaten up by the one opposing wide receiver. That was Eric McAllister of TCU, and then last week Amari Thomas, 9 receptions, almost 100 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So is West Virginia going to lock down these wide receivers, pass breakups, especially if they're a little bit slow to get off the ball because they're nicked up? Can Jason Chambers and Michael Coates Jr., Jordy Scruggs, and the rest of the safeties lock these wide receivers down? I think also turnovers. Colorado is 110th in the country with 14 turnovers lost this season. As we know, Carter and Derek Carter at safety and Scruggs at corner had interceptions last week on Connor Wegman of Houston, and the defense also recovered 2 fumbles. So can this be a turnover fest for West Virginia's defense, again, against a beat-up offensive line, beat-up receivers, beat-up tight ends, and now you're down to your 18-year-old true freshman quarterback of Colorado. So I would say for West Virginia's defense, what I really was impressed with, I feel like last week against Houston, was the defensive line rotations. Corey McIntyre looks like he's finally to 100% after tearing his ACL going into the 2024 West Virginia spring game. Him and Nate Gabriel have a really nice, solid pairing, I feel like, as the second-string rotation. Also, Jamori Robinson kind of on the outside, spelling Braden Siders and letting West Virginia be a little more creative with how they want to use Curtis Jones. I wonder if Curtis Jones got more carries this week in practice at running back. If Jack Leach is hurt, Clay Ash is hurt, West Virginia's down to Dior Hubbard and Sincere Bowers at running back. So they need another body. They need another guy in there to potentially take to take carries. So if that means keeping Braden Siders on the field more and using Jamori Robinson at that bandit position, Eddie Vesterinen, Eddie Kelly, also Vasani Redwood do an awesome job, I feel like, on that defensive line. You know how much I've been saying for how many years now I'd love to see West Virginia get to a four-man front. Maybe we start to see it here in these last couple of weeks. I'd love to see that. And then just continuing to bring pressure whenever it calls for it. I think West Virginia did this very well, disrupting the timing, the cadence, and like the comfortability of Connor Wegman last week, especially in lengthy downs and distances. You have to make that uncomfortable for Colorado, because if they don't run the ball well, they're in those kind of longer situations, if penalties kill them, or you are fortunate enough to get a sack. That's where we haven't. Do they throw the ball up and then just get some chicken shit receptions out there? You know how much I hate that. So let's transition to the other side of the ball when West Virginia has it. So talking about the West Virginia O against the Colorado D, and what do you know? Another 4-2-5 scheme that West Virginia will go against under a second-year coordinator, Robert Livingston. So West Virginia's offense has finally started on an uptick statistically. 23 points per game. That's 99th in FBS. 358 yards per game. That's 91st in FBS. For Colorado, they've given up 30 points per game. That's 106th in the nation, and 426 yards per game allowed. 118th in FBS. That's terrible. And specifically, defense has not traveled for the Buffaloes this season. Looking back, while two weeks, the last 2 weeks are the Buffaloes. Last week at home, but then on the road, October 25th against Utah, giving up 53. Colorado's previous two road matchups, they gave up 36 at Houston September 12th and gave up 35 at TCU on October 4th. So if West Virginia hadn't scored 35 plus points before last week against Houston since the RMU game week 1. So if just a baseline trend of 35 points allowed continues for Colorado, I think we're in for an offensively entertaining affair by the Mountaineers that may mimic this 2005 team that they're playing on behalf of in this contest. So for number 2, I feel like if West Virginia wins the toss, I'd take the ball. I'd blitzkrieg Colorado with a perfectly scripted touchdown drive, just like they did last week against Houston on 12 plays. First thing down the field, I just can't see this Colorado defense resiliently stepping up the way Houston did last week when down 21-7. I know, it almost felt like, even still, it was a home matchup for Houston with only 25,000 people in the stands. But a Willie Fritz team, not going to let that team just quit, roll over. They still have a lot to play for. Still wanted to challenge, win that game, and stay in contention for a Big 12 championship game appearance. For Colorado, how many cornerbacks did I say were listed on that availability report? Attack them. Go after them, take heads, similar kinds of way that UCF did against you when they were at home a few weeks ago. I think you can do that against Colorado, and this team's already thinking about their bye week, resting up, and then coasting till whenever the transfer portal opens up in a couple of weeks. And I was worried about this for Colorado. I was not buying into any of the hype with them. I know I've kind of been off and on. It's kind of off on Cincinnati and Houston, but I feel like I've been right on Colorado and Oklahoma State. Is that Colorado, what was the post-Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter type of program going to look like? And I feel like we're getting a glimpse of it. We'll see, next year if they're able to kind of bounce back. They have their core, if they can build around Lewis in kind of the same way that I think that West Virginia should build around Scotty Fox moving forward for a long-term plan. Or is Coach Prime thinking about, hey, what's going on in Tallahassee, Florida? Different. I don't want to go on any more of a rant. But that's what I feel like. And another thing, talking about this Colorado defense, again, Byard's out for the first half. He was tied for 6th with Fred Perry in the Big 12 in tackles with 68 on the season, while adding 3 pass breakups, an interception, and a forced fumble. Their best man in the secondary beyond Byard or arguably right there with him, is senior nickelback Preston Hodge. He's also a transfer from Liberty, like Salter, tied for the national lead with 11 pass breakups on the season. So with McKinney kind of banged up, does West Virginia try to stay away from Hodge or they try to attack him? I don't know. McKinney does have 5 pass breakups on the season. So, but where Colorado is getting killed is on the defensive line. Colorado led the Big 12, as probably many of you remember, last year with 39 sacks. This year, just 10. That's 125th in the country. They've given up the second most yards rushing in all of FBS with 1,942. Colorado's big transfer, and I put that in air quotes, big transfer portal add on the defensive line. This was supposed to be a high-impact guy. And 6'5", 325 pounds, junior defensive tackle Jaheim Otis from Alabama, just 6 tackles, no sacks, no TFLs for the season. Samuel Akunlala has only played in 1 game this season. Arden Walker's being keyed on, so he's not having statistically as good of a year this year as last. It's been senior defensive end Keaton Wade, who's been really the guy to step up, but he still just only has 2.5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, team leader for Colorado. This group is underachieved. I think injuries defensive-wide for this whole team have kind of held them back this year. You know, it's not helping whatsoever, but this defensive line is not the kind of ferocious, tenacious, get after you, put you in negative field position for your drives like they were last year. That's what made it felt like Colorado, and they just did not invest. Man, maybe they've spent the NIL war chest. They spent so much of it in 2023 and 2024 that they had a down year, and they got to get back to the fundraising. And they've missed on some of their transfer portal targets. So I would look for as much as I want West Virginia to attack. Like if this was a Dana Holgerson-led offense, Jake Spavital calling plays, Will Greer, David Sills, Gary Jennings. I would suspect that Coach Rod is going to want to establish a ground game just like he did last week against the Cougars. And if it works early, I think it's going to be a big day for Dior Hubbard, Sincere Bowers, maybe Curtis Jones Jr., and Scotty Fox running the ball. Between Hubbard, Bowers, Fox, and Clay Ash last week, 53 attempts for 246 yards on the ground with 4 touchdowns last week. Can they break that yardage total? Maybe. I think they can do that at home against a Colorado team that's reeling. Just keep those guys healthy. Hubbard took 29 carries last week. That's a lot. So maybe they can manage the workload a little bit more in this game. I think that's the most attempts West Virginia's had on the ground in a game since last year's game at Oklahoma State that West Virginia pounded the Cowboys. I would say also just look for West Virginia to maybe test Colorado's secondary ability to tackle one-on-one throughout the first half. If they don't like, then they don't want to tackle, maybe it's death by 1,000 cuts that West Virginia brings upon the Buffaloes defense. Now, if they do tackle well, or they're, maybe Preston Hodge does step up, maybe you see them get tested over the top by Cam Vaughn, brought in a 24-yard touchdown catch, beautiful one-handed ball last week for a touchdown. Jeff Weimer, beautiful 53-yard play, and also that was in the fourth quarter, and Rodney Gallagher had a 26-yard reception. So maybe they tack them vertically. But I would just say, most important, keep Scotty Fox healthy on this day. He's been on an impressive tear for the last 3 weeks, from going from a 4 QBR against UCF 3 weeks ago to last week he had a 95, near perfect against Houston. Can he continue this ascension? As he gets more reps, as he gets more comfortable within the system. I love hearing what Coach Rodriguez says, like just talking like a 50-year senior out there, conversing back and forth with him when talking about plays. Feels like Fox has confidence. The guys believe in him. The offensive line coming off the ball incredibly well in that Houston performance. That was the first thing that came out of Coach Rodriguez's mouth. And also the perimeter blocking, chef's kiss. Absolutely beautiful. Grayson Barnes, maybe the best blocking I've seen him do last week. He was awesome on the outside, creating lanes and space for the guys to get to the outside. Special teams, nothing. We do have an Australian punting contest. So love that. Ollie Straw, continues good game, bad game, good game, bad game. But when he has those good games, man, he can really boot the ball. Last week was awesome against the Cougars, 6 punts, and I didn't complete my thought when I listened back to that recap show. The sound of the ball off his foot, I don't know if it was just FS1's production quality, just being their parab mics being really good down on the field, but the ball just sounded different off Ollie Straw's foot last week. He was awesome. 42 yards per punt average. That was his highest of the season with 2 punts over 50 plus. For Colorado, it's going to be Damon Greaves, and I remembered the name. He's a transfer from University of Kansas. 48 punts on the season, 43 yards per punt average, just like Ollie. He's got 13 inside the 20, same as Ollie, 11 of 50 plus, same as Ollie, and does have a long of 67. So field position could be an interesting battle between these two Australian punters. I got to give him a shout out once again to Cade Hensley. Didn't think he could do it last week. Nailing that 50-yard field goal, just hooking a nice little draw in to complete the kick, was 6 for 6 on extra points for the season. For Colorado, it's senior Alejandro Mata. Just 5 for 6 on the season, hasn't had a lot of attempts. Long of 42. Did have a 30-yard field goal last week against Arizona with 2 extra points made. Nothing really worth note in the return game. Just watch for freshman wide receiver Quentin Gibson, little guy, 5'9", 155, but in kickoff returns, if Ethan Head continues to boot the ball out the back of the end zone, we don't have to worry about this, no problem. But in the kickoff return, Gibson does have a long return of 45 on the year with 19 returns, 25-yard kick return average. So got to watch him. We'll see if Head continues to kick the ball through the back of the end zone like he's been doing a really good job of lately. So 3 keys to victory, get you out on a prediction like this. I'm really intrigued by this matchup. I think that this is one that West Virginia, if it can kind of string along, even though TCU was a loss, to come back on the season, win last week against Houston, win this game, was kind of a 50-50 matchup I talked about in the preseason, and then they got these last 2 ones that are going to be gauntlets. On the road at Arizona State, got a bye week in between, and then Texas Tech at home, but there's still not an unwinnable matchup, I feel like, on this schedule, especially the way West Virginia is playing better. Arizona State dealing with injuries to Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson, and then, of course, Texas Tech, big one this week at home against BYU. If they're able to win that game, they play UCF, they might be sitting so pretty going into that final week against West Virginia that they might try and decide to rest some of their starters. So I know it's like, oh, Carson, okay, we're talking about West Virginia's 1s against Texas Tech's 2s. It's not apples to apples, West Virginia beating the nationally top 10 rated Red Raiders. But I don't care at the end of the day. NFL has to play games like that sometimes where teams rest their starters the last week. If that's now coming to college football, we'll have to see. I don't know. If still then for rankings and playoff seeding positioning, maybe Texas Tech doesn't, but we'll just have to cross that bridge whenever we get there. But still, a lot to play for these Mountaineers, I feel like, while bowl eligibility is still hanging in the balance for them. So 3 keys to victory. Number 1, I feel like this is finally now that the hunted West Virginia becomes the hunter at home. In the similar way that UCF did that at the Bounce House a few weeks ago, I think that West Virginia can be aggressive, that they don't have to. Our defense is motivated. It's not like it's that Utah game out there where you just don't feel as if you're going to score any points. This offensive line starting to gel a little bit. The receivers are starting to show what ability that they can do. And when you have a quarterback who can run this offense, if fun performances like we saw last week against Houston. So now that West Virginia has been the hunted for so long, can they flip the script on Colorado and be aggressive, take it to them, score points, and then defense stand on its head? And what I think is going to consider my second point is turning Colorado over. I can't understate that statistic of how poor Colorado has been as a team in turning the ball over this season. We're talking about a true freshman quarterback. Make him look like one. The West Virginia defense, the secondary especially, looked possessed. Who was it? There was one play early in the game last week against Houston where the defensive back, it might have been Derek Carter also, and I'm glad he got a pick later in the game. Just absolutely read this wide receiver screen package for Houston. It was almost like simultaneous that he hit the receiver, hit the ball, still tried to come away with a pick, but ended up dropping it. And you're just like, that's good film study. That's good film study. That's good scheming by Zach Alley. He's got these guys, in different roles that are starting to finally fit their skill sets, or their skill set fitting the position and how they want to use them, and like we're reaping the benefits of it. So you have to continue to provide pressure, which is the Zach Alley calling card, but then these turnovers. They still always have this internal goal of turning opponents over 3 times. West Virginia got to 4 last week, end up coming up with a decisive victory. So that's what I think. Play complementary football. If your defense is going to stand on their head the entire time, offense, take it to the opponent, and we're talking about a really weak defense. So do it to them. And I just hope that the blocking looks like the first quarter of the Monstars versus the Toon Squad from the original Space Jam, where the owner of the Monstars just goes, go out there and crush them. I got nothing against Colorado. I really don't. I'm very indifferent toward them. I like many of the teams within the Big 12. I feel like the kind of hatred that I have against the old Big East schools and some of the other blue bloods in college football, Texas and Oklahoma, Miami, etc. I know they were part of the old Big East, but it's like those are the teams that I do not wish good things upon. The Big 12, I'm just like, In Colorado, these newbies that we're just now getting to play for the last couple of years. Cincinnati a little different because we have that Big East history, but it's like I got nothing personal. It's all just business, as so many people like to say from time to time. So I think with West Virginia now, it's about business. That they need to go put on a show for, not only in recruiting, but I'll start with the retention. I think that the way that this offense has looked these last couple of years, the ability to sell guys like Jaheim White, I know he's coming off injury, or guys like Cam Vaughn to come back instead of pursuing their options elsewhere and being re-recruited again, or in Vaughn's case, of trying to go elsewhere. I think you're now selling to these guys with extra eligibility that, hey, there is a plan. There is a nucleus being created. We have something here. This is something that we can build upon. So you're doing that. You're appealing, I feel like, to the crowd that you're going to try and woo in transfer portal recruiting with the amount of wins that you're and development that now you can show. They're like, hey, you took some of these guys out there, and yeah, we really struggled to kind of come together early, but we're really developing, and then prove with their statistics and wins for 2026. You have to be able to do that. Similarly with the high school prospects. That's what I was thinking, like, oh crap, how's West Virginia going to appeal to a guy like Kevin Brown, who was a Penn State commit, and then trying to pick between West Virginia and Ohio State. It looks a whole lot better when you can say, hey, look, man, your visit, we won next week against a ranked opponent. We're continuing to string around wins. We're building something here. We want you to be a part of the future and anchor this offensive line and be a part of it. Like that, you have to have proof in the pudding for that. That's something that unfortunately just failed, I feel like, for the whole Trust the Climb movement, is there wasn't any hard evidence that West Virginia could sell that, like, hey, we're putting guys in the NFL. We're challenging for conference championships. Look at the statistics by anyone outside the running backs. It's just like the way that West Virginia played its games and weren't beating ranked opponents, so on and so forth. So that's what I hope that over the course of these last several games, I want them to win every single game, don't get me wrong. But, man, if they put on a really good showing against Arizona State, really good showing against Texas Tech, it's like, okay, hey, we everybody sees this. Everybody understands this, and analyzing it of, like, what are you really, doing behind the scenes is the proof in the pudding, ultimately, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So this is an opportunity at home. Really nice day. I'm sure there's a lot of different recruits out there, not only the high school 2026 class, but 27s and beyond. So hope it's a beautiful day weather-wise. Turnout's great. Tailgating's awesome. It's a military appreciation day, so I'm sure West Virginia will do something nice in that regard. So to appeal this program, make it look like a nationally relevant program, even though 3-6 doesn't not competing for a Big 12 championship this year, but hey, it's almost like two halves to 2025. It was before the TCU game and then TCU and beyond. So my prediction, a preseason 31-22, and this is when I really thought West Virginia would be rolling en route to an 8-4 season, even though I think I predicted them to lose their last two contests against Arizona State and Texas Tech. But at this point, I went 31-22. I feel more confident about this. Look, diving deep into the numbers. The way Colorado's played defense on the road this season, how many injuries they have mounting up. I think if you are a betting man, if you care what happens in Vegas, I would take that 6.5 point spread. I'd bet, and I'd take it for sure. I'm going 38. I consult my man, the Swami, and he is really sweating right now watching this West Virginia basketball game against Campbell. That's going on, hopefully that we can get back to, but he's feeling confident with me as well. He's really preoccupied. He's really anxious, so I got to put him down. But 38-20, I think West Virginia's going to come away with a victory. It's going to be one, sing the song. West Virginia takes heads, looks really good offensively, and comes away with a victory and on to the next one. So feel really good about it. Really like it. Love to know your thoughts. Please leave them here on YouTube. And again, if you've liked this video, please like it so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. And I'd love to have you a subscriber to my channel. But more importantly, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. I'll be back on Sunday to break it all down, analyze it, whether it's win, loss, tie. We don't have ties in college football. So I'll be back on Sunday. Hail West Virginia. Let's spot the ball, baby, and let's go.